call, please.
Mr. Cerrone,
Here.
Ms. Doyle. Here. Mr. Gatewood,
Present.
Ms. Johnson. I see her on the Google Meet. Mr. Ploger,
Present.
Ms. Simulton,
Present.
Ms. Swanson.
Present. All right, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 2.1, Superintendent Search Firm Presentations. And we will start with Ray and Associates. If you'll just introduce yourself, please.
Hello, Bridget Cheney from Ray & Associates. How is everyone tonight?
Wonderful.
Good.
How about you?
Good, good. So I promise I am going to be thorough but quick because I know we have a time limit. So if at any point that I'm speaking and you feel as though you have a question, by all means stop me. I don't see any of you, so except for Ms. Johnson now. So if there's anything that you want to do to get my attention, just verbally pop in and that'll be just fine. I do have a presentation, if it's okay that I screen share.
Yes, and while you're doing that, I would like to have everyone go around and introduce themselves on our board. Although you can't see us, we'll introduce ourselves anyway. And then
That's okay.
I know that you said that we should stop you at any time, but if you know we've indicated that we've given you a 20-minute time slot, and so if that's going to delay you, I would prefer that you go through your presentation, and then if we have questions, we can ask after.
Sure.
All right, Jared, would you like to start?
Sure. Jared Ploger.
Lori Doyle, sorry, I was changing my glasses.
Dominic Cerrone.
Ellie Swanson.
LaTanya Simulton.
Eugene Gatewood.
Jennifer Johnson.
Okay, you can start.
All right, thank you. And what I will say, I don't know what you can see or not because it takes you off the screen when I'm sharing. So what I'm going to do is share this, and then I will exit off the presentation to just have a conversation. But I wanted you to have some visual aids anyway. And so Ray & Associates, and thank you for welcoming us in tonight. Appreciate it very much. As you know, I'm Bridget Cheney. And this will be the team. I am part of a team that represents Ray & Associates and would represent you in your district should we have the privilege of being selected. So Mike Collins is our president and is out of Ohio. And Dr. Karen Hall is one of our national search associates. She is a former superintendent in St. Louis, Missouri. And Kathy Schoenfelder is vice president of the company, and she is our home office contact that would be dedicated to your search from the home office perspective. And then myself, I'm in Michigan, and we are very team-oriented, so you will have access to Kathy, Karen, myself, Mike at any point in time, but if it is something that is logistical, I guess is how I usually think about it, then Kathy is your person. She's wonderful at responding within minutes, as we all are, but she handles many of our logistical things. So that's our team. And I will happily talk about our diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice statement. And what we'll say is that, you know, diversity, inclusion, equity, and social justice are at our core. We don't shy away from that. We represent and have placed more women and superintendents of color than any other firm, and we're proud of that. We think that oftentimes students, staff, and communities love to see themselves represented in the leaders. So we work very hard and diligently to make sure that we have a very diverse candidate pool that we can bring to each and every search. and our strong commitment, of course, to social justice. And so the next slide I want to talk with you about is your input on the search, because I know that's always something really important to boards, and we want to honor that as robustly as possible, because it's your search. You know your community better than we do, better than anybody else, because you live and breathe your school district and community. So the board is involved in several different ways, and the first way that the board is involved is one-on-one interviews with us, your search team members, because we want to hear from you. What are the strengths of the district? What are some areas that you'd love to see filled in by your next leader? What are some of the things that you think are attributes of the next leader that you need to have in this up-and-coming new leader of yours? And so we ask questions of you individually and confidentially, so we can begin to put together some themes for you. So we ask you those questions, and then we'll also hold community forums or stakeholder groups and ask those same questions, so that you can see how do you view that, and in comparison to what your community, what your staff, what your students view those questions as. So we give you a good amount of data on that, both quantitative and qualitative. But so you're involved in that. You are the main driver in determining what your candidate profile ends up to be. And you are also in absolute charge of the timeline. So you tell us, when would you like to meet? How long would you like the application window to be? We will give you our best thinking. We will give you all of the things that we think will lead to a successful search, and ultimately you get to select that. You also, throughout the process, are kept so informed. We're highly transparent. We want you to know every step of the way, because the same as we don't want any surprises, we also do not want you to have any surprises. So you also set the candidate compensation. So what is that window of salary that you'd like to put out and publicize for us to recruit against? And you conduct the interviews, of course, so you are intricately involved in that piece of it, because this absolutely is your pick, your job. You hire and evaluate the superintendent that you select, and so you must be an integral part of that. The other thing that you'll do is you will select the advertising venues that you want this to go into. Where do you want this to be advertised? And we have several choices. One thing that does come with our base price is an EdWeek ad. So we automatically place your superintendent candidacy profile and open position in EdWeek. And the other venues are absolutely up to you. It's usually right around $1,200 to $1,500 if the common package is selected, and that would be NAPSI. For Black educators or Black superintendents, ALICE, which is for Latino superintendents. So those are the type of venues that oftentimes people would like to advertise at. So you tell us that it automatically goes on our website, automatically goes out to every one of our associates across the nation, and so they make their contacts as well. So that is the involvement of the board, absolutely all the way through. We are with you every step of the way. We will help you in any manner, and we will set forth all of your choices to guide you to the best decision that fits your community, your school district. And as I try to make this go forward, the next slide that I want to share with you is just an overview. And this process overview is where I'll hit probably likely many of the questions that you either have or the ones that you posed to us. And we will conduct, as I spoke about the stakeholder forums or community forums, we will conduct those in any language. We also have a survey that we send out to any and everybody. Actually, we ask you to send it out, but we compile it, and we will have it translated into any language that you'd like us to. And it asks people for what are the top characteristics that they want to see in the next superintendent. And it asks them to rank order their top 10 out of 31. So you get quantitative data from that to also compare with the qualitative data that comes in from the forums and the groups and things like that. So you have, like I say, lots of data to work from when developing your candidate profile. We are the oldest firm in the business. We have the most searches completed, over 1,600 now. We do have a tremendous pool of candidates. We have over 28,000 unique hits to our website each month. We also have, like I said, scores of experienced associates across the nation, and we are all very diverse in our backgrounds, educational, board members, and I'll say could be current, could be former. So educational type of positions, whether that is central office, it could be former superintendents, it could be current sitting superintendents in some cases, not in this case with you, but in some cases. And we also have people from the business sector that have elected to join our firm as well, because we'll talk about hybrid candidates in a moment. And like I say, some board members who've been on your team, right, and sat in your seat. And so that gives us a very well-rounded team and a lot of diversity in thought when we're talking about searches. So there is comprehensive support from our associates. I talked about that piece of it as far as the engagement, not only of you, but of your staff members, your students, your parents, community members, business partners, and you do have access to Kathy, who's full-time in the office staff. She will also visit you on site should she need to. Karen and I are also available to come to your district for stakeholder groups. We can provide hybrids, so we can do offerings that allow for people to sit back in the comfort of their home and offer us feedback to provide to you, or out in face-to-face public. So we can do either, and a lot of times people do like the hybrid piece of it. So when we think about the methods that are used to check the credentials, as we go through this process and the application period is open, and then comes to a close, however many candidates applied, completed an application. And we're seeing that range anywhere from 25 to 40 right now, depending upon the school district. And we comb through every single one of the completed applications. And what we do is we overlay the candidate's background, experience, and all of the things that they list on their resume, letters of references, and all of that to your candidate profile that you helped us develop, that your stakeholders helped us develop, so we can see best fit. Fit's extremely important to us. That's when people stay in the superintendency. We know that the longest standing superintendents stay because it's a very best fit for them and for the district. So we love that piece of it, and we are always looking for best fit. So we vet these candidates, like I say, against your candidate profile. We come up with 10 to 12 that we think are best fit for you, and we present them to you. And when we present them to you, you will see a video of them answering 3 to 4 questions that are not given to them ahead of time. And we do that because we like for you to be able to get a picture of them before you even go into an interview. Who are they a little bit? How do they interact with the camera? How do they speak off the top of their heads in a way that is very logical and from the heart, and it kind of gives you a good view into who they are. And then we also ask them a few specific district questions that popped up in your theme as far as what we learned in the stakeholder groups and from you. And we ask those questions, they respond, we tell you all of those answers. We ask references, non-references, former district or that former employer, and things like that. So we search out people to speak with that they haven't given us. We always ask their permission. There isn't anyone who said no, and we go far and wide with that. We also conduct an internet search. So we're searching for anything that may pop up with their name in it, because we know how easy it is to do that these days. And again, we don't want any surprises for you. So we conduct that robust background check prior to bringing you the 10 to 12 candidates. And then what you do from the 10 to 12 is we facilitate a discussion, and we have a forced prioritization matrix that allows you to narrow it down to the number that you want to interview. It might be 5, it might be 7, but anywhere in there for first round interviews. Those can be conducted in person or online via Zoom or Teams, whatever works best for you. And from there, that'll be your first round. We'll help you develop questions and walk you through that. And then we will have you interview, and from there you develop who you'd like to see second round for the final interviews and to select your candidate. And in that process, for your finalists, we conduct an in-depth background check. So what that is everything except an FBI background check. It is financials, it is driving records, it is any type of criminal or civil litigation. It is all of those things, and you get that information prior to any type of contract negotiation or selection that comes with your finalists, your second round interviews. And so what we want to always make sure is that you are comfortable with any of the people that you move forward, knowing that they are a clean slate, ready to come to you in a manner that you're ready to receive, right? So whole and ready to lead and being bold. And the other thing that I would say is the guarantee. That's an important thing. So we do guarantee a couple things. First of all, we will not come back and ask your superintendent for 5 years at least if they would like to interview somewhere else. Are you aware of such and such a job that may be in your hometown, or whatever the case may be? We do not come back and tap anyone on the shoulder for 5 years. That's a guarantee that we have. And then we have a 2-year guarantee. And the 2-year guarantee is that if for some reason the superintendent does not work out, we will come back and conduct that search for free. The limitations on that are health, anything that was unrealized, and could be a health issue that requires them to step away from, and or death. So it could be either of those. That has not happened often to us at all in the past, but once in a while it can occur, and we want you well covered because we know how important it is. So let's see, I have your questions here, and I want to make sure that I've touched upon them. Okay, strategy for recruiting and the pools where we source our candidates. So associates across the nation have this tremendous, robust amount of people that they touch in education and out of education. Because often we see hybrid candidates these days that are being highly successful. It might be somebody who's in the military, or it might be somebody who was an executive of a private firm, but was engaged in things that lend themselves to leadership and education. So anybody who comes along that way, we absolutely vet, we absolutely overlay them against your profile and bring them forward if they're a viable option for you. So we do recruit through our associates. We also recruit through those 28,000 hits. We have over 3,200 that are on our database that are actively seeking employment that we have a continual relationship with. One of the distinctions we have that can sometimes set us apart from others is we don't have a pool each season or for a couple of seasons where this is the group of folks that went through, a superintendent academy, let's say, and we're trying to find each of them a job. And this is our pool that we go from search to search to search with. Each search is unique, it's different, there are nuances to it, and so our pool varies across the nation and across each search. So it is not a closed pool search. It is very, very deep. And we reach a lot of people through not only the ads, but our own interactions with them, of people that we know, or networking that we've been in. We are at AASA and things like that. So our network is very, very wide, and that's how we do that. So we are not exclusive to the elementary and secondary sector. We are wide and when recruiting candidates, and I'm proud of that because it goes to the diversity that I spoke about very early on. We do not conduct any personality quizzes or anything like that. We have found that when matched with the candidate profile, it has been very much a best fit type of scenario, and that works very, very well, has worked for us in the past, and seems to be very, very productive for districts as well. So I would also like to talk about what we presented today, what I presented today, certainly can be tailored to what you need, the time in which you are. So while, like I say, we have kind of our, I'll say protocols, they can certainly be modified at any point in time to fit the place in which your district is. So we'd love to partner with you. We absolutely appreciate the time today. Welcome any questions. I think one of the other things that sets us apart, we are woman-owned, and we have a higher than average percentage of diverse and women associates. So we're very proud of that as well. So with that, I think what I'll do is any of the questions that you have. I'm close to that 20 minutes and wanted to make sure to honor your time.
So Bridget, just one question. I want to give you 4 more minutes because we started four minutes late, but I just want to make sure you feel like you've touched on all of the questions that we presented to you.
Well, let me look just to make 100% sure, and I don't know, let me see. I'm looking to see if I'm still sharing.
I'm sorry. You go ahead. I was under the impression that we didn't give you 20 minutes, but we did. So
Oh,
if you've looked at all the questions.
Can you hear me?
Hold on a minute, Jen. Just a second. Jen, did you want to start out with a question?
I just have one simple, quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bridget, are you aware that we would, or I should say some of us on the board, I didn't take a poll, would like to make sure that our new board, when they come in April, beginning of May, has a chance to be a part of this process? Are you prepared to be able to bring them, those new members, I'm so sorry, up to speed on where we're at in the process?
Absolutely, yes. We worked in another district. I was part of the search team as well that had quite a board turnover during their search. So very, very adept at that. And what I'll say is thanks for asking the question because that can be tumultuous for people. Because this is a big deal, such a big deal for you and your district, and we want it to be very smooth, the transition to be very smooth and seamless.
I just want them to have their voices.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank you, Jen.
Yes.
Thanks for that question. Okay, we're going to start this way. Eugene, do you have a question?
No, I think she answered everything that I wrote down.
Okay. Make sure we're doing 2 minutes if we need to. Okay. Do you have a question?
I could come up with one.
You don't have to.
Allie Swanson here. I don't know if you can see me. So you talked about tumultuous times. So we have a very tumultuous online presence, right? Which, has some accurate, inaccurate, kind of all over the place. So I guess a concern for me is how would you represent our district in light of, I guess, what am I looking to say? Like I want the
Night of the situation.
I want the best,
reputation,
right?
maybe? I
I
don't
want the
know.
best light forward. Like I realize that most people can read some of it and know, kind of what's true and kind of what's not. But clearly, we have a very divided community on many things. So I guess, what's your experience with that?
Yes. So guide me if I don't fully answer this. I'm going to do my best based upon what I heard and understand. And what I'll say first is we do our best in the stakeholder group meetings and things like that to learn your community, learn the things that are hot button items, learn the things that are happening. Right now, we're just finishing a search in a district that has an ongoing lawsuit. And what we do is we make sure that candidates are very well versed in the things that we learn, that we know are true through conversations with you, through the stakeholder group meetings, and the things that are lifted up as your truth. And so our personal approach, first of all, works very well. But then I want to address a little bit the engagement with folks, because sometimes that can be, like you say, tumultuous, right? If you're in a stakeholder group meeting and something comes up. And the beautiful thing is we are trained facilitators. We do our very best and are pretty good at any type of thing that comes up that we can de-escalate. But we always want to represent you, like you said, in the best light. So we can do that best when we immerse ourselves into your district, learn you, learn your students, and all of the things that surround you, so we can speak truth about who you are and what you're about, where you're headed.
Can I actually piggyback that question?
Sure.
Do you have experience where, because I'll be honest with you, since you brought it up, do you have experience where those of us in education were fully aware where you might actually be advising us that being in a situation where those of us in education, we're fully aware that our situation is garnering state recognition. Have you been in a situation where you have gone to a district and advised them, listen, we are having trouble getting quality candidates or getting candidates that are fitting you, and it's because of your situation? Have you been in that situation? Would you be in a situation where you advise the district you might want to hold off, we'll work with you in those scenarios?
Absolutely, yes. So about a year and a half ago, we were in that very situation. And what we asked the board to do is allow for us to walk them through. They didn't have anybody internally that they wanted to put out as an interim. And so we said, let us help you place an interim. And, you know, we'll do that. Your interim can stay for about a year, and then we'll walk you through this search again. And in the meantime, what'll happen is some things will die down a little bit, hopefully. And we can also be in your district a little bit longer to be able to suss out anything that might be even undertones that are hard to find in the first 2, 3, something like that month. So we have been in that situation and turned out successful, which is wonderful. But we're happy to do that. And what we won't do is we won't push the search if it's not right, and if you're not going to get the very best candidate out there for you at the time. So we're happy to walk alongside you in that.
We do have time for one more. If Dominic does not have one, Lori, go ahead. Lori, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm wondering, you've given us a lot of options that we could have. So my question is, what is included in the base price that we were quoted? And what is additional? I know you said that we would include 1 week ad in Ed Week. Everything else is additional. What other things are included that you've mentioned that would be additional? What things are additional costs?
Sure. So travel to your district is also billed to you at a cost for cost. So if I drove to your district, then you would reimburse mileage and meals. The great thing is I don't eat much, so that's always a help. But that's somewhat of a joke. But so any type of travel for associates to you, and we do try our best to make sure that we keep it as minimum as possible, while also making sure that we're there as much as we need to be. So we don't expect that that'll go over anything more than, I think 4,200 actually is the number that's in here. I would guess, because I'm not too terribly far and Karen is not too terribly far, that 4,200 would be on the high end. I would guess something more along the lines of 2,000 to 2,500. So that is an addition to that. The advertising that we spoke of, Ed Week, comes in the base price, but then anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500, depending upon which other venues you want to advertise in. And then candidate expenses for when you bring them in person. if you choose to reimburse them. That is a choice that you make. You can elect not to. Many districts elect to reimburse their travel when they come interview with you, and again, that's a minimal cost, whether it's driving or airfare to get to you, and no reimbursement.
answer me.
So, other than that, everything else is included in the base price. I do know that there's a cap on it of $31,000.
Yeah, I like
So,
this question, yeah.
So does
Oh,
that
whatever.
include, I don't feel like I got an answer. You'd recommended or suggested in one that you could do things like get an interim candidate in. That would come at an additional cost if we chose to go with an interim candidate placement through you and then a superintendent candidate. That would be additional, correct?
So yes, what would happen is that would likely be an additional nominal fee if we did an interim, and because I didn't know it, that may be a route that you would go. I don't have a price quoted, but the search would still stand on its own. So let's say let's say you put an interim in, if we just pretend.
I don't need a.
For 1 year,
Okay,
and then you wanted to conduct the search, we would still honor this price. It would just be the nominal fee of putting an interim in for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Just shoot that back
Okay.
over to you.
Thank you.
we can-
We've got,
We got it.
we got
You
it?
can go ahead, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'd like to thank you for presenting to us today, this evening.
Yeah.
And, we will have deliberations and we'll be in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
good luck with your selection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys, you all have a rubric in front of you.
Holy cow.
Everybody got their rubric? So,
Yes.
you can, review it and then start to, while it's still fresh in your mind, document what you like. Does anyone want to communicate out their thoughts, or I'm gonna give you a couple minutes, and then I'd like to have a discussion.
I thought we were going through each one and doing the rubric and then discussing as a whole at the end.
Well, we will do that, but we have allocated anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes, because we went a little long on this one, about 10 minutes, to have some type of discussion prior to our next presenters coming in. So if we can be, with our time, if we're judicious with our time, we can have some discussion if we'd like, because once this is over, we're not gonna have a considerable amount of time to discuss
Well,
after.
we can take as much time as we need, though, can't we?
Yeah, because you're not gonna actually, your vote's coming next week.
Right.
But if you all want to have discussion, if you want us to hear something about your thoughts, concerning the candidate, you're more than welcome to do that. Because we can have some discussion at our board meeting as well. Because this is our information
Okay.
session.
Sorry, I'm trying to,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm just trying to fill
Go
out the
ahead.
rubric and I keep stopping to listen, sorry.
All right.
Holy cow, came up with this rubric.
Well, you don't have to. Just look at this part. Just look at the top.
Got it.
Yeah, some of these are gonna be just more of,
Right.
it's hard for me to be able to fill this out in its entirety without having.
Some time.
Well, no,
Oh,
not
of
time,
course.
having an understanding of if these are the only three we're gonna look at. For me, I might call something a 1, but out of the 3 of them, it might be the 2 out of the 1.
I get it.
So you can't, I don't need more time at this time.
Relativity.
Relativity. One is questions addressed that should be addressed during the presentation, and one is questions we should be asking, which we did not, if they were not addressed in the presentation. So these questions not addressed in the presentation, we had been told we would be asking after, and we did not in this case. So, but it's the same set. It is not. There are a lot of words. Well, I like words.
I kind of want to see them all before I answer these questions.
You want to see them all before you answer?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna make adjustments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have an idea, but yeah, adjustments I'm gonna need to make.
Yeah, if you're ready, I mean, I'm sure they
I'm content to go forward.
I have my favorite candy down here.
Do we
No,
have
but
any
those are
pencils?
mine. No, you can't.
Caramel M&Ms?
Yes,
She took my caramel M&Ms.
Those are one of the,
Those are my
those are for
favorite.
Oh,
Don't
I
take
like
my
it.
candy.
So I've been doing,
We're going.
anytime something
No.
was a negative, I
No,
did a
that
circle.
was not
Oh.
authorized.
you're funny.
It's like,
No,
well,
it's
Yeah,
not.
okay,
and if
good.
it was a tally, I
love
did
you.
a point for them, I did a check.
Did your kid ask
So
you
that,
about the cookies?
that way
The
I'll
kid was gonna come
average it later.
Which good?
I don't know, the kid that knows the person that I said, I'm gonna take these because she took mine.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got one?
Okay.
Oh, you look at you with your pencils. Thanks, Ursula. You're the coolest.
Well, every time they
Who made the
said
rubric?
something else, I was able to
Oh, okay, got it.
check. Every time they said something within
Oh,
one
I like
Need
that.
This is,
that I felt like I gave it a check.
Interesting.
But then if they said something, I was like, no.
Because it looks
Then I
like from
gave
the
it a circle.
Bowdoin group.
Then I
Okay.
gave it a circle, and then I'll.
yeah,
just
this,
add it.
Okay, you guys,
this-
listen. Eugene
somebody's
has a
source.
really good way of doing this.
What's up?
Okay, Eugene, share.
So as they're talking, I'm looking at this rubric, and so what I'm doing is every time they mention something within one of these categories that I like, I'm just giving it a tally mark. But every time something is said that I don't necessarily, I give it a circle. And then that'll just remind me later when I'm doing my, but it's just a way for me to remember points for or against in each area.
Thank you for that idea.
Yeah,
Smart.
Are we ready for the next one?
Yes,
like
I
it.
think so.
yeah, we can get the next one.
Okey-dokey. Yeah, I'm
Then I feel
not-
like some of these
this is-
keywords should have been in the questions.
Yeah.
Well, we
Now-
didn't
This
get
is
the,
a way to
we
do
didn't
it.
get, I didn't make the rubric until later, so.
Right. But you know what I mean? It was
There's a
hard for
lot.
me to judge them on a rubric where they haven't had a chance to know what I'm judging them on.
Well, I don't know that they should know what we're judging them on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I realized I needed a rubric, I asked,
Yeah, I did too. That was kind of weird.
he's like, yeah, I found one.
That really was kind of.
Hello.
How you doing?
No, I'm not kidding.
Good evening.
That did happen in my.
Oh,
day.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
Sorry.
No, yeah, I had to look for quite a while, yeah.
Yeah, right. No, I said the same thing and then I squinted. No.
Yeah.
Don't stand up. I'm glad to meet another.
Just the
I'm glad
polite
to
thing
meet
to do.
another side.
Jared,
I'm
Jared,
Hi,
nice to
nice
meet
to
you.
meet you. Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm gonna give you the fist
All
bump.
right, gotcha. Nice to meet you, sir.
You're warmer.
You know each other, 'cause, shaking hands,
Kevin and Devon.
I'm over the shaking hands.
I understand. I understand.
This chair's low.
Okay, 5 minutes early, good.
And that would have been real weird.
So you want us to go?
So,
Yeah.
we would love for you to introduce yourself, and then we're gonna introduce ourselves to you.
Where should I point? Here we go. I'm getting back to the beginning here. So we'd like to introduce ourselves to you and then kind of run through quickly some slides. Takes about 10 minutes, answer any questions you might have, just to give you a chance to get to know us a little bit and for us to get to know you a little bit. I'm going to let my colleague and partner, Dr. Devon Horton, introduce himself first.
Yeah, so Devon Horton, currently I serve as superintendent in Muskogee, Illinois. This is my third year. I've been working with the search firm for 3 years now. I've had a chance to complete, this is, would be my, I've done 2 or 3 searches already in partnership with some really strong leaders in the organization. So, just wanted to introduce you all to that. The other piece I would say is that I'm a leader who's nationally been known for our work for prioritizing equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. In Evanston, you know that's a community where that's what we live by. But nationally, most recently, and what has been happening, it's been critical that we bring that to life. The conversations about equity is one thing, but how do you make it live and lift it where it's actually actionable, and that all students, regardless of their race, gender, or any of those things, are regardless of whatever happens there. Some things that we've done in our district that I've been paying attention to what you all are doing here. We have equity symposiums where we bring in presenters from across the state and the country to come in and do work to help support our educators, our custodians, our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers, so they can understand the dynamics of what belonging and diversity really means. It's not this bad word that sometimes it gets tagged as. It's actually a reality. So just want to thank you all for bringing us an opportunity, for having me the opportunity to come in and present to you all tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Devon. My name's Kevin O'Mara. I retired in 2017. I was a superintendent for 9 years at Argo Community High School in the southwest suburbs. I was a principal for 7 years before that, a high school math teacher, dean of students. After I retired, I became a full-time associate professor in the Department of Leadership at Concordia University in River Forest. We train those who wish to become superintendents and principals and get their doctorates at the same time. One thing that Devon, of course, failed to mention is that he is just recently received a very, very prestigious award. He's the National Superintendent of the Year for the NABSE, which is the National Alliance of Black School Educators. He is a leader in his field. And our firm is half owned by me and half owned by my partner, Dr. David Negron. First generation Mexican-American. We're the only firm that's minority owned. More than half of our consultants are either black or brown or minority or women or both. So we have a very diverse approach to making sure that we present a slate to this board that's diverse, that's qualified, that meets the needs of your community. I've done over 60 searches in my career as a superintendent search person. Just FYI, my sister Patricia O'Mara, I don't know if you heard the name before or not, died a couple of years ago, was a teacher here for over 20 years, an art teacher. She loved it here. We used to sit on her patio about a mile from here, and she allowed me to get to know this community. It's a great community, and you deserve a tenant. We're willing to take on that role if offered the chance. So I'm going to run through the slideshow here. We can talk some more. So we were established about 20 years ago in 2004. We've done over 600 successful superintendent searches. We have about 70 now consultants throughout the United States, mostly in the Midwest. We have all kinds of contacts and networking approaches to the way we do business. About a third of our associates, including Devon, are active superintendents, and that networking is stretched far and wide. Suburb of St. Louis. It's 175 square miles, 37 schools, almost 30,000 students. I was able to recruit Dr. Curtis Kane. Dr. Curtis Kane is the National Superintendent of the Year for AASA, which is the largest organization in the nation. He came. We're good at recruiting. We want to make sure we do well by the board and the community that we serve. Every search that we've ever done, you're welcome to check these references that we've given you, but any more that you want, we're happy to provide that. We've completed those on time and within budget. We have a verified, 97% success rate. And the metric we use for that is that 90% of the people that we place as superintendents receive a second contract offer from their boards of education. And that's really, really tough to do, especially in this day and age when boards perhaps turn over, when things are so tough from a political standpoint, perhaps. Our success rate has only gone up since we took over the firm about 4 years ago. My own personal success rate is 100%. Every single person that I've ever placed with the Board of Education has received a second contract offer. We have a strong, as I mentioned, a strong list of references from school districts we've done business with. You've got some in your proposal, but we're happy to provide you any more that you'd like. Saban, can you kind of go through the search plan?
Absolutely. So there are 4 phases to the search process for us. Phase A, of course, is open search, right? That's once the search firm is selected, we're selected, we would start our process like instantly with some steps that we'll do to communicate with you all and also begin the process for identifying potential candidates. But there's a lot that go into that. You'll learn more about the community piece that we reach out to get feedback and understanding so that we can help you really design and build a quality superintendent search profile. We create a profile, right, which is phase B. And then we develop the candidate pool, right? So we want interest, right? But not everyone who's interested will have the desirable skills or talents that you're looking for to lead your district. And that happens in phase C. And then the select slate of candidates. That process is where Kevin and I and other members of our team will take a significant amount of time to interview and talk to individuals who are interested. And then those individuals will make a decision to send a slate of about 10 to 12 to you all, where you'll have an opportunity to look at those applicants and then make a decision on who you would like to bring in for the actual interview.
And we're the only firm that guarantees face-to-face interviews. Even during COVID, we do a slate of 20 to 25 people that we interview and bring forward typically a slate of semifinalists for the board to consider of about 5 to 7 candidates. You would interview them and decide perhaps which 3 you'd like to move into the finalist stage. We'll talk about that at the planning meeting at the outset. It's a very detailed process. All these decisions are yours to make. We have suggestions. We know that our process works, but these decisions are yours to make. I'm clicking too fast. I'm sorry. So our search process is that we advertise locally and nationally. There are some advertising options that we will discuss with you at the planning meeting. Those are your decisions to make. Frankly, our best way to get candidates to apply for these positions is through our networking. Again, about a third of our colleagues here are active superintendents. The other 2/3 have been doing this for many years. We've got lots of contacts out there. We engage your community. When we create the profile, we will do a series of focus groups, usually 8 to 10 to 12 people per focus groups, identified by the Board of Education. The first and foremost one would be with the Board of Education in a closed session. We would have a conversation about the traits, as Devon has mentioned, and characteristics and experiences you're looking for in your next superintendent. But we would do focus groups with the teachers, with the admin team, with the community members, with elected officials, with staff members, with students, and that's my most fun one. I always like sitting down with students and hearing what they'd like to have in their next leader. We also offer 2 open forums so that if community members and parents want to come to an open forum and share their ideas, they're welcome to do so. We would ask some key questions and have them respond to those questions. The other open forum we would recommend to be a staff open forum, typically after school, usually around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, where staff and teachers and admin who are not part of the focus groups can share their ideas with us. The other key feature is that we design a proprietary customized survey for you to roll out on your website and advertise through social media and newsletters and whatever else that you choose to use. It is usually open for about 2 weeks. Again, it's proprietary. It really gets to what people want in their next superintendent. We take all that information, we boil it down, and present that profile to you, and that usually takes about 30 days. We aggressively recruit and attract talent. I talked about Curtis Kane, but we've got many, many other stories to tell you about successful candidates in their current roles. We screen and conduct interviews for people that we feel best match the profile. That's the lens by which we view candidates who might be good fits for Oswego. We will present that slate of candidates to you, facilitate training and interviews for the Board of Education, especially if not gone through it before. We have an interview workshop with the Board of Education, give you some sample questions that you may want to consider to ask candidates, but that's completely up to you. We thoroughly screen candidates and support the hire. In other words, after the person is placed, we do mentoring on site here for that candidate to make sure that they're doing a good job and meeting the board goals that have been established. And we provide guarantees in the search process, which we'll feature in a later slide.
All right, our guarantees, which is really critical. We want quality candidates. In the event the first set candidate does not produce a candidate from the Board of Education wishes to hire, we will continue to bring candidates forward when candidates forward for actual expenses only. The second piece, if the superintendent resigns or is dismissed for any reasons within the first 24 months of the starting date, the consultants, we will conduct a new search for you for no additional fee. The board will pay only the actual expenses of the search. And the last one, guarantees that our consultants will not recruit. This is really critical. Your new superintendent, or for the duration of his or her first 2 contracts. Right.
So we won't touch that person for typically, 6 to 8 years after they're placed here. So the person you select is the person that you'll be able to retain from our perspective. We want that person to be here. So our cost, the consulting fee is $21,500. Our expenses won't go over $1,800, likely to be much less than that. We're both local, so it's really just basically mileage from our homes to get here. Advertising, we were talking about some advertising options with the board at the planning meeting. Some have better value than others, and we'll talk about the various options that we would present to you. And lastly, for the finalists, the one single person that you'd like to offer a position to, we would recommend that you do a criminal and social media and school background check. A, to make sure they don't have an outstanding harass that we're not aware of, especially in states other than Illinois, that they went to school and got the degree that they say that they did on their resume and their application, and that there are no outlying issues with their social media posts. Some firms don't do that, and they've gotten themselves in trouble with their boards. We want to make sure that the person we present is the person that you thought that we would present.
Proposed timeline. Of course, we're here, right? It's the 1st of February. January, February, we'll do the search process begins. Then we create the new superintendent profile. That's, of course, with these interviews and the focus groups and surveys that we'll send out to the community. And then we'll develop a candidate pool from February to March. March, we start selecting candidates that'll come to the board for you to go through the process. And then in April, the timeline would be for you to make the selection. Of course, this is all based off the board's decision. If this timeline is the one you want to follow, we can flow with that, or if you would like to make it longer or whatever it may be, we can make the adjustments accordingly to what you want to desire.
These are suggestions. These are your decisions to make, however. We'd like to take any questions you might have for us at this time.
So I loved what questions we already presented, and I think we should ask those again. So let me just, do you have any questions for right now?
I have one question to follow up to the when you're explaining your cost structure. When it comes to the advertisement, it said to be determined. How often or likely is it that we would have to spend additional dollars to find a candidate and to tap into those advertising dollars, and what's the typical cost when that happens?
So there are lots of options. There's LinkedIn, Indeed options that are more for the standard workforce kinds of endeavors. The one that perhaps we'd like you to consider is the Ed Week advertising. Ed Week is the national journal for people in the administrative roles and seeking positions. It used to be that you get the Ed Week once a week in your mailbox and look at it. In the back, there'd be some listings. That doesn't happen anymore. We have a partnership with Ed Week and the AASA so that they would run those advertisings for us. The advertising for Ed Week, I think, is $750, and that's an email blast to all 6,500 of their members. So it's well worth the money. Of the ones that we'll present to you, that's the one, really the only one that we would recommend that you go forward with. That's the one that brings the best bang for the buck.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the phone. One of our board members is on the phone. Her name is Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer, do you have a question?
Yes. As a matter of fact, thank you for presenting tonight. We appreciate it. We definitely, I think, the board would like to consider maybe extending the timeline a little, as we do have an election that will start in February, and the primary is in April, and we would like to get the input from the 4 new members. So I'm grateful that that is a flexible timeline. I do have a question. You had mentioned, Dr. O'Mara, that you had your sister, I believe, that was in the community. Do either one of you have any community connections, either to our village, our school district, our fire department, or any other of the governmental bodies that surround us, or family members living in the Oswego School District?
My sister died on Christmas Eve 2 years ago. Her 3 children, who all went to Oswego schools from start to finish, still live in the community, both my nephews and my one niece, Kelly. So that's the only connection that I have personally. I don't have any connections with any of the other government agencies.
And I don't have any connections.
Thank you, Jennifer. If we could all speak into our microphones, Jennifer's having a hard time hearing us. All right, next, Ally.
So I'm gonna ask my question again. If you're familiar with our community, our online presence can be pretty tumultuous, especially the Facebook. So how do you present our district in the best light and get us a candidate that kind of can blend? I was trying to figure out a better way to word that. How do you deal with that?
Competing views?
Yeah.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Competing views?
Yeah.
Competing views are okay. We are used to that. We've done, I think, 78 searches since the beginning of COVID. Some of them in very tumultuous situations. I probably didn't say that word very well. Bad situations where you'd have police cordon off the board meeting and
We've been
tossing people out and so forth. We always make sure that candidates know that there are perhaps some issues that need to be addressed. We've done a lot of research on your 4 pillars of your strategic plan and so forth. Engaging the community, I know, is something that probably could be strengthened here at Oswego. The connection between the board and the schools and the community. For me, I don't think that's a challenge. I think that's an opportunity. Devon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and just sitting superintendent, very familiar, right? So this is in our process for interviewing, we do look for people who have experience working in communities that are similar. They may have some of the divisive issues that exist in almost every community now. It's almost to some degree, when reading the profile and looking at Oswego, you're looking for someone who may have some experience sitting in that seat. So we will also look at individuals who maybe stepped into some challenging situations, but absolutely, before our interview process, we'll pick that up through our structure and know who's ready for something that could be so fire.
Is it okay if I keep it consistent and piggyback? Yeah. If those of us in education, we know that our election is garnering state attention at this point here. And so I'm curious, if you get to a point where you are having an issue putting forth what you think is good faith candidates, will you come to us and say, hey, listen, we think we need to move this timeline because we are having people who are having trepidation? Will you approach us and say, we think we need to adjust this for your sake?
Absolutely.
And have you had to do that ever?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, about 6 months into COVID, I was doing the search for Franklin, Wisconsin, which is a suburb not too far away from Milwaukee, about the same distance you are from Chicago. Very divisive. The board flipped. They have a different election cycle than you do right now. And we had to reopen because the board shifted and the needs of the districts shifted, which is fine. So there were some disappointed candidates that we could not bring forward anymore, but the person they finally selected is someone that they're all in love with, the parents, the community, the students especially, and the Board of Education. So yes, we are I think, good at adapting our strategy and our timeline to meet the changing needs of the district.
Since mine was kind of already answered,
Okay.
I'm going to take the liberty of asking a different question. You'd mentioned that you had placed the AASA Superintendent of the Year.
Yep.
Was his asking price within the asking price of the district? Another way to put that is, if we give you parameters, how often do you find you need to bring us candidates that exceed our parameters for annuities, salary?
For compensation? Never. If you say, you know, your ceiling is X dollars, we are very clear. We have three credos. One is to take care of the community and the board. The second is to take care of the candidates themselves, so we take very good care of our candidates. And the third and most important is to take care of the students. So those three credos are something that we live by. We don't do this to make a lot of money. Most of our candidates aren't in it to make a lot of money. And yes, I know there are some superintendents that make a lot of money across the United States. But if you say your ceiling is X, we simply will let the candidates know that that's your ceiling. And if you're not interested any longer because that ceiling doesn't match your existing salary and compensation package, then we simply won't bring them forward. What I would encourage you to do is have a conversation with us about those issues before you make that decision.
Thank you.
Okay. Dominic, would you like to ask a question? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jen. You're ready. Jen had a question, so.
Well, and I have a statement too, and I just want to thank you both because one of the things, you know, my colleagues have said about being in a tumultuous situation, there are parents that feel a little bit marginalized, their voice feeling a little bit marginalized because maybe they are in the minority. And so where we've been, and one of the things that you shared was brilliant. It's an opportunity for us to create some new bridges. So I look forward to having candidates that can and make that we are representing all of the parents and students in the community. So I'm grateful for that. So as you know, we really appreciate a flexible schedule because we do want to bring in the voice of whoever our new board members might be. Where are you with, let's say we don't have a candidate, and I know you touched on this a little bit, but with bringing in an interim for us and stabilizing the environment for our students and our staff until we can bring in another round of potential candidates if we're not happy with who's been chosen, not on your part, but just in general, don't fit our profile.
If the board chooses to go the interim route, we will do that for free, as long as we are with a signed letter of agreement that we will do your full search when that time comes, perhaps in the fall. Having said that, we will talk about these things during the planning meeting, of course, but having said that, there's a nationwide teaching shortage, and you may have felt that here at the board level. I know the students and teachers and staff have felt that across the United States, but also in 308. There is a nationwide superintendent shortage as well. Now, I just finished last week the search for Gurnee School District 56 up by Wisconsin there, where the roller coasters are that I'm scared of. We were able to attract 38 people to apply for that position. One of our competitors, I know one that you'll meet tonight, had 11 for the district next door. Now, is 38 better than 11? Who knows? They got perhaps the person they wanted. Certainly Gurnee got the person they wanted, but we're good at attracting candidates even under those kinds of difficult circumstances.
Thank you.
I would avoid an interim unless it's necessary, only because the pool's getting shallower.
We would like to avoid that as well because we would like this for our staff and community and students, but we also want to give ourselves every opportunity to put the right person in and start to heal our community as best we can, because we know that it will affect student outcomes, positively affect student outcomes.
Absolutely understand, and we'll work with the board in any way, shape, or form. If an interim is what you want, we'll do that for free.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dominic.
Yeah, You actually touched on this, the question I was going to ask. You said the superintendent pool is getting thin. So is that due to timing, or is that due to just the overall demand? What and supply? What is? Can you just go further on that?
It's a couple of things, but if you ask a sane person who is perhaps now an assistant superintendent somewhere, would you like to be a superintendent? After that person saw their superintendent getting beat up for the last 3 years, that kind of deflates people sometimes. Other people, me, Devon maybe, would see it as an opportunity. So you have to find the right fit. But that pool has shrunk.
So-
We used to get 50 people 6, 7 years ago. I used to get 50, 60 people to apply for a position like this.
That's why educators.
That doesn't happen anymore. Just like teacher, the teacher pool has thinned.
So in 6 months, do you expect that pool to improve or remain constant? I guess I want to understand
In 6
calendar-wise, is there an issue?
I don't think it's shrinking as dramatically as perhaps I led you to believe, and I apologize for that. We'll get you the person you're looking for. That's the bottom line. But the longer you wait, I will say there's an associated risk with that.
Okay.
So I have a question. So regarding the type of candidate that you recruit, are you fishing only in the elementary, secondary education sector where most individuals are superintendents or have their, well, they obviously have to have their credentials and licensures and all of that, but do you swim in other pools
Yes.
to find candidates?
Yeah, we have attracted a wide range of non-traditional candidates. As a matter of fact, the one that we just did about 3 years ago in 205, they were open to and wanted to see some non-traditional candidates. 2 of the 5 finalists that we presented had no school experience whatsoever. It really kind of depends on the profile that we developed after conversations with the board and the profile and the focus groups and the survey responses that we discussed earlier. That's the window, that's the lens, that's the eyepiece that we look through to make sure that we get the person that you're looking for and that person's background.
And really, what's really important, while we are Midwest heavy in our searches, we get candidates from across the country that apply for our positions.
Oh,
So
and we had one from Hanoi, Vietnam, apply for Gurnee.
Oh, wow.
He was the director of the American School. We get the word out. We're good at getting the word out. So that's just, we get them from across the country, but we get them from all over the world.
Do you find that candidates who don't come from the state in which you're recruiting have a more challenging or difficult time acclimating as with all the laws and stuff regarding states and what superintendents have to know?
Typically, no. I mean, I would say that the one I just recently did about 3 years ago in Barrington, we recruited someone from Columbus, Ohio. He thought Illinois was a gold mine compared to the laws they have in Ohio. So I guess it kind of depends on where you're coming from. Now, if they're coming from Broward County, let's say Florida, and DeSantis is telling all the teachers what the curriculum should be and what the books on the shelf should be, that they would love to come to Oswego.
Okay. All righty. Well, we're about 3 or 4 minutes away from.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Absolutely. Please do.
Please.
What is your timeline for making a decision?
Well, I'm going to jump in here and say one thing, which is we have an election on April 4th. It has, if you talk to, like I said, if you talk to anyone in education, they're full, like you're smiling because yes, people in administration are fully aware of this, right?
Yes.
I will not support, I can't speak for my other board members, but I will not support any decision being made because I don't think that's fair to the person that you bring forward to us. They need to be able to work with whoever is sitting up here. I'm very leery about moving too forward with the process.
Hold on. I want to just, no, you go ahead, but.
Okay.
No. I think
I
I
think
understand
he
the
was
question a different
asking
way.
the other question, which is, when are you gonna make a decision about who we select for our search
Is that
firm?
what you're asking?
Yeah.
That's my question.
That's,
yes.
that,
Then I'm gonna let you answer that.
I will tell you right, that was a poorly worded question, I apologize.
I
know what
apologize.
I know
You
what
answer
meant,
that question.
But I think, you make some really relevant points. In terms of our decision, we have a board meeting on, is it Monday?
The 20-something?
What-
The sixth.
The 6th.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're back here on
So
Monday.
February.
that decision will be made that day.
I'm gonna throw out another little option that I've done with other boards in these circumstances. Consider it or not, up to you. If there is a slate of candidates who have filed for the board already and are up for election, it is not unheard of to involve them in closed session meetings and planning sessions under these circumstances. That is a doable thing, and I've done it several times.
That's great to know, thank you. Because if we did have a candidate that we really wanted to get on contract, it could be very helpful to know that so that we could feel comfortable making a decision if it fit prior to the.
Yeah, we want this to work for you and the candidate and whoever is elected to serve on your board.
I actually think that that's a great idea for the planning process, even as we're talking about, some of these decisions early on. At the very least, it's another focus group.
Yep.
There's no downside to that.
I agree. We've done it several times.
Very good, okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure meeting you. Hope to hear from you soon. And if you need anything, you've got my number, you've got Devon's number. I take texts like my wife gets mad at me sometimes because I answer the phone at midnight, but
Mine too.
we're all in the same bucket. Thank you very much for your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
So I have my type 75. I will never use it. It's administrative.
I hear that that's kind of a common theme. A lot of teachers seem to have a type 75
Yeah.
and choose not to use it.
I would never use it.
There's
I
a
won't.
reason.
I won't leave the classroom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you too. Be safe.
No desire to leave the classroom.
Okay, did you guys find the hash marks to be a better way to do this?
I did not, but thank you for the advice.
I
think that's a
did.
great idea
No,
for
because I
colleagues
can't
for
fill
others.
out whatever.
I have my master's plus 45. I just never read paper. Yeah. Actually, master's plus
Okay,
60-ish.
so,
But
okay,
right, I take a pay cut too.
now I'm gonna go back and do my hash marks for the first one.
You know what? Now you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
go
go,
back and fix it,
no,
don't you?
well, because the second one was great for the hash marks. I loved it.
Isn't it fun how every brain works different?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep, but I'm gonna go back and do the same thing for the first one. I'm gonna go back to my
Wait a minute.
notes. So
Yeah,
we have
I
15
have one
minutes
in my
until our
thing.
next one. So, can I ask a question? So regarding like, the candidates, our current candidates, so,
Well, which candidates? The candidates for this
Oh,
or
no,
the
no.
school board candidates?
school board candidates, like having a focus group just for them.
I mean, I'm not gonna commit to anything
I'm
like
just,
that.
I'm just asking a question like, is that,
Do you mean in a separate meeting, or, I mean, it seems more efficient to include in.
My only question was, did he say in a closed session?
Yes,
He did.
yeah,
Oh,
we
I
can't
welcome
do it
it.
in closed
As
session.
Yeah,
an
we should
option.
definitely do
Yeah,
it.
that's kind of how I feel about it too. It should
Let's
Well, I didn't
definitely do
mean it
it.
in closed session. I meant just like a focus group where they bring them in just
Yeah,
like they
yeah,
would any other
definitely.
community members, whether they're parents or students.
No, I think he
or
said
whatever.
closed session. I think we should do it.
Once we select a search firm,
I think we should
I'd
ask
like
the
to,
lawyer first.
in part of that,
I think we should consult our,
I think I'd consult the search firm and make that plan together with them once we select a search firm. though.
yeah, oh,
But
for sure.
I
I'm just,
like the idea, I'm in favor of that. I think that it, for our perspective, I mean, it also gives us a sense of security that whatever candidates end up being elected, for those of us that are leaving, we can't talk in closed session
Uh-huh.
at the same time as the new board members if they're new to being a board member. So
Yeah.
it gives everybody a chance to
and I think it's,
That's correct.
yeah, and I think it sets the superintendent up for success because then they have the voice of those who are coming on the board.
That being said, I believe that I am done no later than May 3rd, 2023, so feel free to exclude me after
How
that.
many days and hours is that?
I think we're down to 90.
90.
I said 4 more meetings till we added 3 more.
Well, I was gonna say.
Probably be more.
You don't know. I'm going by the calendar, because that
We'll have a few
doesn't
more.
change.
We were gonna add 4 more meetings.
No,
Yeah,
stop it.
why not?
We wanna see you guys more before you leave.
I'll wave at you as I drive by.
You're gonna drive by?
Oh.
Well, I mean, there is wrestling on campus, so. Alright.
Allie, I really appreciate the question that you've been asking because I think depending on what you might be reading, you're not getting the full story. So I think it's so important because I think everybody does a social media search or an internet search. And even in our own community, I've sometimes tried to answer questions when I've seen things that are really skewed one way or another and don't present
Yeah, we have more to go.
facts behind something.
What? No, it was on, it was in our board packet one day, like when this first started. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one that.
yeah.
First go round with this.
Yep.
You want it? Can't have it.
I have it. I might have it.
Can't have it. Why'd you ask her that?
Yeah, right?
You want it?
Yeah. The, you know, I forgot where all the others were, and then Ursula reminded me that it was in the board docs.
No, I know where the
Yeah.
packets are. I just meant the actual, like, already printed out in the fancy folder. Did
Mm.
you print that out?
Yeah.
No, it was,
It was also in
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want it?
I might have been.
I'm
no,
serious, you can have it,
No, I'm
'cause-
sure Ursula can get me one if I choose to have one, but
Okay.
I'm sure this will suffice at the moment. But I do have the information in Word docs. I just thought it was a nice folder. I was gonna repurpose it.
Eugene, were you at that West game?
I think that certain, 2 of them gave
Well,
paper
yeah, it's the first
presentations.
Monday
Which
of
one,
the
Romeo
month, I
Jolie
remember,
West?
so.
No,
Yeah.
did Oswego
Oh,
East
is that
play
what
him?
it was? Ah.
Yes,
Were you at that game?
I was there.
How was it?
It was electric.
Yeah, man, I was bummed I missed that one.
It was a great game, especially since we won.
Yes, I'm.
And that would probably be,
They didn't drop in ranking at all. They're still like 4th in the state,
did they leave?
but they lost to us. So.
Are they gone?
I still think East can take Bolingbrook. They just, for some reason, they've got them in their head.
We absolutely can take both.
It's a mental. It's mental.
Is that who's
It's a mental
playing?
thing.
Oh, 6:30.
The
No.
basketball teams?
No, I just
we
wanted to
already
know
lost
if you
the
went to
ball.
that game because that was a game I
So-
wanted to go to.
Latanya,
Play Yorkville
Well, we
Friday.
won, did we win last
you
Tuesday?
shared
The other
concerns
yesterday?
about
Was it yesterday?
quality
Yeah,
of
we
applicants and timing.
killed them
Are you,
yesterday.
Well, yeah, because that's what
do you
we've
feel
been
better
doing.
about that
Yeah.
now?
Yeah,
But
my kid's
tomorrow,
been going.
Friday we play Yorkville, so should be
Okay.
good.
My-
We didn't beat them by much last time.
No?
My team's going downstate for the first time since I stopped coaching.
Junior high?
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited for them.
Whatever you guys want to do.
They beat Yorkville by I want to say 6 the other night.
That's good.
Yeah. What I
Or
don't
it's not,
miss
right?
is going downstate and dealing with those
I mean,
hotel
those guys
rooms.
will get you an interim.
I don't miss that.
Dealing with who?
The hotel
to be
rooms.
candidate.
It's always the same
Finding the
weekend
ultimate
as
candidate.
cheerleading state.
Yeah.
I don't miss that.
Who wants a job?
Well,
It's just
yes,
how much
ma'am.
we can pay for it.
Well,
That I do not miss.
Could be me.
a surcharge. Yes, we go surcharge?
I've heard of it, no. I don't
You've
wanna
heard of
think-
it? I like
I'm-
that.
I'm totally kidding.
I know.
don't think that that should happen, nor would I expect a candidate should hear anything to that effect and think that that would be on offer. I'm gonna have this.
Oh, there's one more.
We're not gonna put surcharges in anybody's head as an idea.
I feel like I work for now.
The Oswego surcharge.
And I have really good kids. so
Something
it
that Lori heard of.
It's something that happens if you gotta pay a premium for something, cause it's not necessarily,
Do with water.
Good.
no.
Glad to hear. Well, people say that.
That I have good kids.
I'm just gonna stop with the whole conversation, cause I'm getting myself
How about you?
Yeah, no, so stressful, not worth it.
Can I get your fist bump?
Okay, I can do it all.
All right.
Not my
Fist bump, and I'm just doing this.
Hey, I got you.
Nice to meet
Hi,
you.
nice to meet you. Have some,
Thank you.
please.
I'm Ellen.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Nice to meet you, Phil.
Well, they might
About
not
to be
either.
nobody in the
Have some.
Anything's spot on these knees.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Jerry.
Sit on your hands a little bit.
Nice to meet you, Lori Doyle.
Yeah, well, won't even go there. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you look slightly
Gave us
familiar.
a pen.
Yeah, you look familiar as well.
Yeah, I'm Jared. You remember me? Yeah, there we go. How you been?
Good.
Yeah, long time no see.
Long time no see.
You've been well, I see. Phil, nice to meet you. Jared, Plug.
This guy, good guy, or should we read that?
Well, he's a rival. I was gonna be great. Hey, Omar, I brought your rival.
Are we doing something?
Next set. There's another set there.
Yeah, what are we doing with this?
Oh, we're supposed to do it tonight. We'll see.
We'll just do another meeting.
Stop it. Stop it.
I have to doodle buddy.
Considering the fact that you were
Have the doodle ready.
girl I used to babysit,
I know.
that's weird.
She's familiar with my doodling.
Hello, BWP.
Hello.
Welcome
evening.
to our district. We are ready to start when you are. Would you guys all like to introduce yourselves? Go ahead.
Jared Ploger.
Lori Doyle?
Dominic Cerrone.
Allie Swanson?
Latanya Simulton.
Eugene Gatewood.
And there's one person on the phone.
Maybe.
Jennifer Johnson.
Hi, Jennifer Johnson.
Where is
Hi,
she?
Jennifer.
I decided not to spread my germs to you guys tonight, so I appreciate it.
And we want you to feel better.
Thank you.
All right, take it away.
Thank you very much. On behalf of BWP, thank you for having us here this evening for us to present our proposal to you. As you can see, is the slide going up? Ah, right there behind you, okay. God, it fooled me there for a minute. We have the mission of providing direction for outstanding leadership, which we think is very important in that we will provide you leadership in collaboration with you, which is very important. So we'll be working hand in hand with you throughout the process. We're now going to introduce the four of us, and I wanted to say up front, you'll be seeing the four of us. We're the ones who will be working this search. We thought it was important to have four people for a couple reasons, due to the size of your community and also due to the time frame that we have. So for example, if we're doing community engagements, we can get a lot done with four people here and can do those simultaneously or pair up in twos and that type of thing. So I'd like to start off by introducing Steve.
Thank you. My name is Steve Griesbach, and I've been with BWP now for a decade. I've done over 40 searches in Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Minnesota. I've also, during the time, worked the last 10 years, worked as an interim superintendent in a couple districts. One was a pre-K through 8 district, and the other one was a high school district. Prior to all that, I had a long career in public education. I was 10 years as a high school teacher, 3 years in as a middle school assistant principal, 11 years as an elementary school principal, and 11 years as a superintendent, assistant superintendent in DuPage County. I share those experiences because as we talk about schools, I have my roots in the classroom, in leading buildings, engaging with families and students and staff. And that never left me when I went to the superintendent, and I don't think it's left any of my colleagues either. So with that, I'm going to let Phil introduce himself.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Phil Earhart, and I'm also a partner with the firm. I have been in education in the states of Indiana, suburbs of Indianapolis, suburbs of Cincinnati, and then came to Illinois in 2007. I followed my kids up here and have been a superintendent in DuPage County and also did an interim superintendent at Evanston with that as well. I've been with the firm now, this is my 12th year. I've done about 50 searches in the Midwestern states with that. I also serve as the executive director for the Midwest Suburban Superintendents Association, which involves 8 different states and 10 superintendents who are invited from those states. I mentioned that that's a rich source that I have of looking at superintendents, and I had one call me last night who's interested in moving to Illinois and looking at different districts there. In addition, we also host an Aspiring Superintendents Conference as well. At this time, I'll turn it over to Deb Hill, who's our managing partner.
Who also has a teacher voice. So I'm sure that the people who are viewing at home or in other places will be able to hear me. As mentioned, I'm Dr. Deborah Hill. I'm the Managing Director of BWP and Associates. I've been with the firm for about 16 years and Managing Director for the last 7. I'm a retired school superintendent, but more importantly, I'm a teacher, continuing to be a teacher. Faculty member at 2 different universities. My children tell me that I really have failed one thing, and that's retirement. And so consequently, I'm still working as a consultant doing professional development in various locations. In addition to that, again, having served as a university faculty member, I was also president of ASCD, which is the largest professional organization in education with the exception of the Teachers Union, and served there for about 12 years in their leadership role, which included legislative activities, as well as traveling to about 17 countries to look at what their educational programs look like. And so I bring a global perspective to the table in terms of when looking and evaluating superintendents. Again, Dr. Deborah Hill, and I get to manage this team. Tough job. But delighted to be here and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you face to face. COVID presented some challenges in terms of superintendent searches, and so again, it's really good to be in the field, and I'll continually not apologize for being a teacher when I share some other information.
Omar.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Omar Castillo, and I'm very happy to be here. This is my 2nd year with BWP, but I have known them for over 10 years now, as they placed me for both of my superintendencies. I'm currently a superintendent in DuPage County for the Keeneyville School District, but I spend a lot of my time on this side of town. I was administrator for Valley View School District for 10 years, then moved to Mokina as superintendent, and now currently at DuPage County. Love this area. Love my time. I lived in Bolingbrook for 15 years. It's just a great opportunity to come back and rekindle some of those friendships or some of those people I've known from the past. So I'm happy to work with the team here to find you your next superintendent.
Thank you, Omar. If we could go to the next slide. What I wanted to do is just to set the stage for you that our presentation will include responses to the 8 topics that you had provided us. We want to make sure we address those. And secondly, you'll see a topic number there so you can see exactly that we've included those in that. And if you would like, feel free to ask questions throughout the process. That's fine with us. As Deb said, we're all teachers, so we're very much in tune of doing that, or if you don't wait to the end, that's entirely up to you on doing that. I'll turn it over to Deb, who's going to talk about who is the BWP.
And I'm going to speak briefly because we want to get to some of the other aspects in both our proposal and in the slides. You can see that BWP is a consolidation of 3 organizations, and then it became BWP, the 4th organization, and it caused us to become national. Each of the previous organizations sort of had their own little regional territory, but once we merged, then we became a national organization, and BWP in and of itself was founded in 2002. So we've had quite a bit of time in this arena. Our basic office is in Libertyville, Illinois, although I live in Evanston, Illinois. However, we do have branches in the South, in Texas, South Carolina, a couple of other places. I want to talk a little bit about the history of our searches. We've had over 600 successful searches throughout the years. Our directorate, our board, is 45% minority and women. We were 50%, and then one of our directors retired, so kind of skewed that. We focus on personalized local service. Each district is unique. There are some similarities with districts, but every district has the unique qualities that make you want to have a good superintendent, a good leader. Leadership comes from the top. And so we take a look at, through a transparent process, what you're looking for, what are your needs, and then try to make that match. We believe in match and fit. So we not only do recruiting, but we also take a look at those who have applied for the position. We believe that students are the keystone. This is all about providing them with the best possible education. And again, my global background comes into being in terms of looking for candidates who have that perspective as well. It's not just about Illinois. It's not just about the United States. It's about the world. And our students need to be well prepared, and we need to have a leader that believes in that and believes in students and will provide the best opportunities for them. In the past 5 years, we've done about 27 searches for districts with 10,000 students, about 16 searches with 20,000 or more students, and I had the pleasure of leading the search for Chicago Public Schools CEO, which is my hometown. I'm a native Chicagoan, so I was very delighted to kind of help them change their focus in terms of their educational leader in marrying both the political aspect as well as the educational aspect. In the last 3 to 5 years, we've presented 46 women or minorities to be placed in superintendent positions. I just attended the National Alliance of School Educators, a Black School Educators Conference, and it was wonderful to see a number of the superintendents that have been placed through us being very successful in their districts. So we're very proud of that record. We have about a 95% rate of success of superintendents who complete their first contract, typically 3 years, and then about a 90% of those superintendents also receive successive contracts. So we feel very, very good about our process in terms of match and fit. The only other thing I want to share with you is the notion of why we are special. We personalize. We don't have a cadre of superintendents out there that we're looking to find jobs for. We are looking to find the best fit and the best match for you. And so therefore, we may be tapping people on the shoulder that didn't know they were looking for this job. But that will be based on what you and the community have told us that you're looking for. And I think that that makes us maybe a little bit more unique than some of the other firms in that we don't have a pool. We start from scratch with every search. And then we utilize the resources that you've heard my colleagues talk about representing in order to be able to successfully do that. So we know that in some situations, we start off well, and it just doesn't work out. In spite of all that we do, it just doesn't work out. So we guarantee that if the search doesn't work out within the first 2 years, we will redo the search for cost. That is a supportive services cost as opposed to the actual fee. So that's one component. The other component is that we mentor. We believe in the successful relationship between the board and the incoming superintendent. So we're available for that first year for anything that you need. We do not assume that you're going to need some help, but we are available by phone or, in this case, being in the state and an hour away in person if need be. So we make that available, and that's at no additional cost as well. We do not pilfer. I was trying to think of a better professional word. We don't pilfer.
That works.
We don't take a superintendent that we've placed someplace else and then move them because they might be a better fit here, at least for that first contract. Now, that does not mean that other people might be in a position and decide they want to come here, but it will not be because we've recruited them. And so we think that that professional, more and some longevity for the superintendent that you may be seeking.
Right, as Deb has said, no search is actually the same because we tailor that to your needs and what needs to be done here and the work that needs to be done here. And so what I'd like to do is take you through our process that's typical. And when I say typical, this is kind of what it looks like. And I'll try to make certain that I'm clear on the work when you guys will be heavily involved and the times when we are heavily involved. So you can see that. What we'd like to think is that our search is number one, people can see and know what's happening when. And that's not just you, but that's your community as well. We think that's important in terms of transparency. We think the process that we talk about builds credibility in the decision that you ultimately make because people see the steps and the diligence and how their voices and their input has been used by you, and we think that's important too. And so when I say that, let's talk about those steps right now, and I'll take through the 9 of them very quickly. 1 through 7 are really directed and more heavily involved with us. The last 2 steps really become more of your responsibility because we will not be in the position of choosing your next superintendent. You will, and that's something that the state expects and your voters expect here. But we will help you and guide you and support you and so that you feel comfortable in that role as school board members making an important decision for your community. In our first step, we would want to meet with you after you choose us to kind of outline that search, to talk about how your search is going to be conducted in the ways that you want it to be. And we will guide you through a number of questions that we have. You know, will it be done in person? Will it be done virtually? Will it be done confidential, that, you know, the only people involved in it is the board? We have a few clients who've asked us to do it that way for a variety of different reasons. That's not typical, but that's also worked and been very successful as well. We'll look at timelines and milestones, and most important, we're going to talk about how we're going to communicate with each other around this process. When we move on to step 2, we work into our recruitment, and our recruitment goes far and wide, and it isn't just typical, you know, IASA or AASA. We reach out to groups around the country that offer the opportunity for educators to come together and work together, especially leaders. And so we do that, and we've also begun working in areas with social media like LinkedIn or Indeed. We've had experience with both of those, and we can guide you in where to do those, as well as where to promote your position. So we get that recruitment position going, and then we do work with you, and we create an audit of your community. We want to know what your community thinks, and so we ask people in your community and board members, staff members, and even we often include high school students, 3 basic questions. What are the best things going on in your school district? And we ask that because candidates ask us, and we want to be able to respond with their actual words. The second thing we ask is, okay, what are the challenges facing your school district? Because we get asked that by candidates as well. And we want to be honest with them about what's happening. And the third question we ask is, what are those personal qualities, experiences, and skills the next superintendent will need to lead your school district successfully? And we ask those questions in a survey, an online survey that's available to all stakeholders, in stakeholder groups typically that we'll work with you to set up. And often we want to run a community forum, and sometimes we do that online because people have gotten real comfortable attending those things. And so anybody in the community who wants to have a chance to participate can do it through the survey, can do it through the community forums. And so when you get to the end, we have a lot of data which we then present back to you along with a leadership profile. One thing Phil just whispered to me, we also talk to you. You know, that's probably the place we start. We interview all of you individually. So thanks, Phil, for reminding me. It's in my notes, but somehow I missed it. And then we start recruiting. And I think recruitment is one of our strengths as a firm. And I was telling them a story about doing a search 2 years ago for a high school district where we looked at the demographics of the district, and then I looked at the demographics of other school districts around the area. And I said, who are the great assistant superintendents in those areas? Because they're the rising stars. And then I talked to some of our colleagues and said, okay, talk to me about these people. And actually called people kind of on the cold just to see if they were interested. We got a terrific candidate out of that process. Didn't get many, but all you need is one. And I just want to let you know that we just don't sit back and wait for people to come to us. We do that. And then we use the data that we gathered in that leadership profile to screen all the applicants. We use that as our rubric, and you will use it as your rubric to evaluate them in terms of what you do. And then after we've screened those applicants, we then vet the top ones, because we want to know what's happening in their lives, what's available in social media and other places, and we don't want to provide you with any surprises. And then we'll present a slate of as many as 6, usually 4 to 6 candidates to you, usually 5 to 6, and we'll present them to you, usually in an executive session, and talk to you about them and why we believe they're the people you should talk to. And we're asking for your support at that level. And then afterwards, we'll conduct a board workshop to prepare you for your job of how to work and sort this out. We'll teach you how to use those things. And then, and step 8 and 9, that's when you do the work. These interviews will prepare you. You'll feel comfortable. We'll be ready for those things. And we suggest 2 rounds. One where you interview the slate of candidates, and then you narrow it down from 1 to 3 candidates to come back and talk to you further. And we think that's a really good process. And during that process, you begin to bond and develop that camaraderie and consensus that happens. And then we'll support you as you begin employing a superintendent in step 9.
Thank you, Steve. One of the topics that was mentioned was the diversity of candidates, and Omar is going to talk to you about that process.
As you can see, some of the topics here, or some of the things have already been mentioned, but I'll cover. Since 2016, we have presented just over 100 underrepresented or women candidates for boards to consider, me being one of them that was presented to my board. As Deb mentioned, we have placed 46 women and minority superintendents in the past 5 years. Our consultants, we contact diverse candidates that we know or that we have met through this process, and so we already have a network of people across the country to be able to recruit. And once we find out, what you're looking for in your next leader, we will be able to go out there and begin recruiting for this position. Some of us are members of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, as Deb mentioned. I'm also an active member of the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. So we already have a circle of colleagues and friends that might be interested in the position, and those contacts that we have are important when trying to find the next superintendent for any school district.
Thank you, Omar. Next, we'll turn to the fees with that. And we tried to look at your questions, so we really zeroed in on that. The consultant fees would be $28,500. That includes administrative and office expenses, the stakeholder focus groups engagement that Steve talked about with you. The electronic survey would be in English and Spanish. If you like other languages, we can talk about how to do that. The verification of credentials, of candidates' credentials, the due diligence and electronic checks as well. We also give the assessment made by Gallup called Strength Finders 2.0 assessment, which is done to identify strengths of each of the candidates for that. For the expenses, we think it'll be around $600, so the not to exceed amount that you'd asked us to do would be a total of $29,100 all in with that. Other potential costs that the board would make the decision on would be advertisement, where you'd like to do that. That would be in the planning meeting that Steve mentioned to you. The candidate travel, if there were a candidate who was coming from the outside, that would be paid by the school district. We would give them a form to fill out and work with your business office on doing that. And then lastly, if you would like to have a deep dive, we do use a private company, Baker and Eubanks, and they will actually do for an additional cost a deep dive on candidates as well for that. Let's go to the last page and talk about why should you choose BWP. Hopefully we've emphasized to you tonight our record of search success, and we've given you some data on that. Our combined group here, we've done well over 100 searches, over 40 years experience as superintendents, probably about 70 years of also teachers, principals, et cetera. The process is very important. It's going to be very clear and transparent to you, and we'll be communicating with you so you can put that on your website as well. We will also work with the engagements to make sure they're very skillfully done. We'll collaborate with the board all the time throughout this process. You'll have our cell phone numbers, so you'll be able to get a hold of us, whoever your contact person would be. And lastly, we're here to serve you, and we're committed to you to do that. At that, I think our time is up, and we'll open it up for any questions that you may have, or if you have any clarification that you would like us to do for that.
Jennifer Johnson's on the phone. Jennifer, do you have any questions? We'll come back to her. Jennifer, we'll come back to her.
Okay.
Ally?
Oh, Eugene doesn't want to go?
No, he shook his head no.
Okay, hold on.
I was trying to keep my questions the same. So we have kind of a tumultuous community and a big online presence that is maybe just a little bit more tumultuous than some other districts. So I guess I'm looking for someone with experience in that. How would you deal with that? How do you manage expectations? How do you?
First of all, you're not the only district that has tumultuous going
I
on at
understand,
this
but
point.
I am particularly in tune to this one.
Right. I'm going to, if Deb doesn't mind, turn this over to her. She can give you just a little bit about some of the, we call it challenges that we have there. And we're very adept on doing that. So Deb, I'll let you start that out.
First of all, with regards to the technology and communication, we believe it's very important that people know where you are, what you're doing, and what's going to happen. One of the key things that we start with is letting the community know what their role is. If everybody stays in their lane, then we can have a successful search. The board is responsible for the hiring of the school superintendent. That's one of your most important jobs. The community is responsible for providing you with feedback and input. And so by clarifying and making those elements known up front, here's how the information will be disseminated, here's when you're going to get it, you're going to need to be flexible in terms of the calendar, because if something happens, if we have a snowstorm or something and we're planning having a meeting, we have to move things back. But one of the things that we found have been successful with communities is giving them all the information and recognizing the transparency of the process and providing them with the data. I think one of the things that happens then when you ask people to take a survey, people get very frustrated when they don't know what the survey results ended up being. So why did I do that? Because nobody told me what the results were. So when we do the surveys, we end up having both qualitative and quantitative data to put together this leadership profile. The leadership profile is then presented to the board. It's discussed at an open meeting so that the community can hear what we discerned during our search, during our research from those surveys and from our interviews and from our focus groups and from the community forum. And we look at the agreement that's reached by the community at about an 80% level. So then we come up with this list of strengths that about 80% of the people agreed with. So you have people on both ends of the spectrum having had an opportunity to present their case, but you really are looking at where are the commonalities. And more often than not, once you begin to do that, people see that they have a lot more things in common than they thought they did. So that helps a lot with some of the different groups who have their own
Yeah.
perspective.
So I like your perspective. I think a little bit more what I'm questioning is how candidates perceive us based on, we have some pretty polarizing groups in the general community online.
Yeah, how do you navigate?
Yeah.
How do you navigate what the candidates are seeing of us, and what is their perception of us, and
Yeah.
how do we,
I'm
what
going
do
to
we
say
do to?
I'm going to say 2 words, and then Phil says he has this.
Okay,
And again, part of it is everybody knowing what's on the table. The candidates as well, that's one of the reasons that we do the leadership profile and that we do the audit, so that they will know that this might be an issue that will come up by a certain group. So candidates don't walk into it blind. You also want candidates that have done their homework, because they should not apply for this position if they have not had experience with X, Y, and Z, which may be one of your concerns. So again, it's the transparency piece on both sides, both for the candidate as well as for the board and the community.
Thanks, Deb. I would just add to that is you're right, social media is very powerful and has large tentacles that are out there. And that's one of the reasons we do the strength and challenges, so we know exactly what is out there, so we can tell the story behind whatever is going on with social media. Also with social media, we'll be using that with your communications director to make sure that we get a variety of stakeholders who involved again on doing the survey, also are very much involved on doing the community engagement groups. As Deb mentioned to you, we're willing to do those in person, but also do them in hybrid as well. We'll do some as well with that, and have had a really good turnout of doing that virtually. Lastly, we're very skilled too if there's a community engagement going on. We've had situations where there'll be a person there who has their own agenda. Hopefully I said that very diplomatically.
You did.
And we are very skilled on redirecting that and going back to, here's the reason why we are here with that. Allison, does that help with that?
Yeah, yeah.
We did some searches last year that were pretty high profile in communities, and Phil and I worked directly on those. And I know Deb worked in Chicago, which can't get much more high profile than anything. And one of the things we would also say is that while people look and see what's going on in the community, they also watch what boards are doing and how they handle that, and how they listen and involve people, but keep true to where they are as a board and their mission and governance. And those are big, important things to keep in mind as well.
For those of us in education, we're fully aware that our particular election has garnered state attention. So if we get to a point where you're not seeing the pool that you want, will you approach us and tell us?
I said, or we're not seeing the pool we want.
Okay, well, that's fine. Yeah, or you can add that in. Will you approach us and say, hey, we're having some issues, you may want to consider X, Y, and Z?
That's a great question, Jared. That the key to us is ongoing communication with whoever's going to be the contact person on the board, so that you're continually kept update what's going on. And we're going to be very transparent with you, very direct with you, so you know exactly what's going on at every moment. We're not going to try to slant things or anything of that nature, so you know exactly where we stand with that too. And then Deb was going to also add.
We work for you. We work for the Board of Education, and we will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And consequently, if we don't find a pool, we're not just trying to hire a person, we're trying to make the best match and the best fit. And we can come back to you and say, we've looked at this pool of candidates. We don't find anybody that meets that 80% threshold. This is what we recommend that you do, which is why I talked earlier about flexibility in terms of the calendar, because we may have to go back out and search again and see what was missing in the candidates that we had, that we now have to pressure and push a little harder for to get the right candidate. So from that perspective, we again work for you flexible calendar. We know you'd like to have someone start at the beginning of the school year, but if we don't find that person, we keep working at it until we do.
I don't know if I asked this part. Have you had to do this before? Like, have you had experience in that realm before?
Yes.
I'm sure, but
Not,
you know.
not often, but we have had, instances where the board ended up not being able to reach consensus because we really expect and encourage the board to have a consensus vote on the candidate. You cannot have someone who comes in on a 4-3 vote when their first part of their job is going to be trying to get those other people that didn't like them on board. That means that they're not attentive to what you've hired them to do. And so again, we try to encourage the board and to use all of the support mechanisms to have that happen. That includes the community. So I'm going to tell one quick story. The community does not get to vote. That's not their role. So if you have 3 candidates that you are bringing forward and you determine, because we've determined this at the beginning of the planning session, that you want the community to provide some feedback and some input, we don't recommend that the community get to see all 3 candidates. We recommend they get to see one. They're using the leadership profile. They're providing you with feedback about how they feel that that candidate matches that profile. So then you have 3 candidates, you have 3 separate sets of community feedback on the individual candidates. So you don't have a group that's pushing for one person over another. That becomes really critical, again, in terms of the success of the superintendent and being focused on the job that you're hiring them to do rather than focusing on trying to get individuals on board who did not vote for them because they're not voting.
Lord? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
would just add one thing. Deb had talked about the consensus process, which is real key. As Steve had mentioned to you, when we do the session with you talking about interview questions, we'll give you an interview guide if you'd like to use that. We'll also spend time, based on our experiences and expertise, how to develop that consensus. There are some key steps on how to do that to avoid having something where it's a popularity contest, if that makes sense to you. Just wanted to add that to that. Who had the next question for us?
Lori, do you have one?
My first question had already been addressed, so I'm going to ask the same question I asked the second time. And that is, how often do you find that the compensation package, the salary, the annuities, things like that, that your candidates come in with a different set of salary expectations and compensation expectations than what the district has in mind?
It doesn't happen, and that's because we would like to have a conversation with you about some parameters up front. And so when someone says, well, I'm making, $1 million here, we'd say, gosh, I'd like to get that job. We kind of say, that's not where this community is at. And that's not where the board is going. And so what we try to be upfront about is say, is to be realistic with them as well as, and that's based on the feedback we get from you.
As well as what you're looking at in terms of the compensation package. We asked your finalists, your 3, your 2 or 3, or your 1 person, to give us just a little overview of what their expectations are, so that when you begin that conversation, you already know, well, they're expecting health benefits, full family health benefits, and our health benefits are really only for the individual. So you kick off that conversation already having some preconception about what they're looking for, as well as our having spoken with you to say, particularly as well as far as salary is concerned. And we'd be happy to work with your business people to give you the information about, well, what is the going salary for people with specific experience, the size district that we have, all of those things, so that we bring in all of that data and information into the conversation from the very beginning. So as Steve says, we very rarely have a dissonance between the candidates that you're looking at, because we will tell people up front, you're looking for $500,000, it's not going to happen here. So keep looking.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 more
questions. We're running a little short on time, and I'm not gonna short you. But after Dominic, then we'll get Jen, who's coming back to the phone now.
This is relatively simple. You said a deep dive, into their background. Can you just give a little more detail of what a deep dive is?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. With the firm that we've used in the past, that's all they do. That's their job. And that's contracted out separately with this. We work with you and we'll broker that with you and the district. Any employee that you hire. The second one, though, is very important, and that talks about social media, news articles, blogs, anything of that nature is also done with that, and you would get a full report in writing on that as well. We have a few districts who use that. We also do our own search with that as well, as far as we just don't call the references on the list because everyone's going to put good people on there. We know a lot of people. We also have another person who is very good on doing virtual and Google searches for us, and she will give us a report as well. So there's a lot of different levels. In that planning meeting, we would talk about how would you like to do that, and then we'll talk more in depth on it when we get down to who are the final candidates to see what options are available for you, and that'd be up to the board of how you'd like to have us handle that.
Thank you. All right, Jennifer, are you there?
Yes. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. I know that a few of you mentioned that you have been in the larger, greater communities such as Bolingbrook. I would like each of you, if you could answer, if you have any direct connections to our Oswego School District, our village of Oswego, any of our greater government entities, the fire department, the police department, or if you have family members living directly in our school district.
I'll start out and I'll give it to Deb on that. Deb and I talked about that driving out here. I have been to DuPage County. I lived in St. Charles. I've been to a couple of fundraising for charities here. I play at your golf course and have known some of the Oswego administrators over the years for that. Deb can talk to you about some connections she has from a personal standpoint.
My grandson's girlfriend has cousins here. And I asked her, just by happenstance last week, if she could babysit with our 15-month-old puppy who just was neutered and so has to be watched for the next few days. And in saying that, I said, because I'm going to Oswego to do a presentation. And she said, oh, I got cousins in Oswego. I'm going to call and check and make sure that they're reading and looking and checking to see, because she knows that this is what I do. So that is my connection. So she's anxiously awaiting what I think of and what I thought of Oswego when I get home to relieve her of Nurse Cratchit duties with the puppy.
All right, thank you.
My own relationship is not with any of the organized groups. I am guilty of stealing one of your principals to come work for us as a middle school principal a dozen years ago.
A dozen years ago. Okay, we'll forgive you.
The other thing, you've been forgiven, Steve.
She's really good,
Yeah.
by the way.
The other thing I would just say is that when we talk about focus groups, we would ask you what are some of those focus groups that you would like, if you'd like to have some of the governmental agencies, the youth serving agencies. We'll reach out to them along with your communications person to make sure that we involve them in the process as well.
Omar's got to confess.
I do have to confess. No. Because I'm, spend time in Bolingbrook, as mentioned. I do have friends in Oswego, and I do spend some time over here at gatherings, with some old friends. But no other connections, but that's my...
I know people are going to ask, so I'm going to say this, that I know Omar, but I never worked directly with him. Omar was at Lukansic. I did interview for a job at Lukansic, but I did not get the job, so I never worked directly for Omar. I was at Jane Addams, so and Omar was at Luke Hansick, so if anybody wants to know, we worked in the same district. However, I never worked for Mr. Castillo. Never had the honor.
That actually, just a quick follow-up on that, only because our outgoing superintendent came from Valley View, and our associate superintendent also came from Valley View. Did you work with either of those individuals? Dr.
Yes.
Sparlin, okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Who did you work with?
With John Sparlin. John Sparlin was a principal at one of the other middle schools when I was a middle school principal there. And Faith was the assistant superintendent of elementary education.
When you were what?
But did you have any direct reporting relationships with them?
No.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Okay. Okay.
And that was a long time ago, yes.
Yeah.
How many years was that?
That was 13 years ago.
You can't see him, but he has a little more gray hair now, so.
I do.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we can answer for you at this time?
I think we have asked and answered all of our questions, and we thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Can we ask this one question?
Yep.
What's your timeline, just so we would know that?
Yep, our board meeting is on February 6th, and we will have a decision then.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, I apologize. Thank you, nice to meet you. Thank you. Good to see you again. Take care, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, does anyone have any comments regarding this process? Anything you want to say? We're on 4.1, board member comments. You want to say anything?
No.
Okay, so I think the process is going to look like this.
Do we have any public comment?
Nope, no public comment, nope. So, if you all want to provide your total scores to Ursula.
Sure.
Oh, well, wait, no. We don't need to provide them because on Monday, we're gonna have the conversation and people can talk about it then, and then we're gonna vote.
On Monday.
On Monday. Is everybody good with that? If you want to fill out your rubric so that everything's clean and, clear and fresh and you know what you're doing and.
Yeah, that's fine. When are we gonna have the discussion about making sure that we're communicating timeline, process to the community, those
Well,
kind?
So first of all, so on the website is our information portal.
I understand that,
Okay.
but I do think that we need to make sure that we're reiterating every chance we get. I think
Status
we
update.
are clear, are we all clear that what Jared is referencing, I would imagine, is that the next superintendent will not be selected by this group, but will be selected when the new candidates come in? Are we?
I don't think we've.
I don't
voted
think
on that.
right, I don't know that we've decided that.
So that's
So
that's
that-
the heart of my question is
Okay,
that gonna
so
come
I-
Monday also? Or are we?
I think when
About
we,
if we're gonna do that, yeah, that's
Okay.
That-
I think that'd be a good time to have that discussion.
then let's have that then.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so, can I have a motion to go into closed session?
There's no board member comments then? You don't?
Nope.
No.
I can read it or you want to read it. I make a motion to enter closed session under statute 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of certain employees and individuals.
Second. Sorry.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Saron.